Yo, what is good, my peeps? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy. You already know who it is. In today's video, I'm going to be remaking my large button-down top, and so I'm going to make a few changes to it. It's summer, so you gotta have the collar shirts. So I think this will be a nice, easy pattern. So let's get right into it. Okay, so here we have two previous patterns that I've already done. This one being the crop version, this one being more of a regular size version. The main things that I'm looking to change with this one specifically is I'm going to take in the chest about half an inch, take in the waist about an inch, take the shoulder sleeve, and I'm going to decrease the shoulder sleeve a bit. So I'm gonna, take this in a bit, and then everything else pretty much I liked. So not really too many changes. And as far as the whole pattern walkthrough, I haven't quite figured out how to, I guess, like walk you guys through it. But like I said, this is a large, and so if you aren't a large, maybe try to make the adjustments at home if you can. Okay, so yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go over 11 and a half, and then I'm gonna go up 25 inches. Okay, so you can mark that. I don't know if the pencil lines will really show up on camera, but like I said, 11 and a half by 25 inches. Now I'm going to use my French curve ruler. And for the front, I am going up 4 3/4, so that'll be my front. Again, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but I put 2.5 here, meaning I put my line on the 2.5 line on my French curve ruler. I know certain French curve rulers are like different, so as far as like getting this angle, I would say, well, as far as getting the angle, I went over about 3 3/8 from our center line here. So if you want to go off of that, you can. Okay, so again, I use my French curve ruler to create our front and then create our back. To create the back, I went up 2 1/4 from this line here, and then I just created that curve that went into that line. And again, like I said, 4 3/4 went over about 3 3/8. So if you don't have a French curve ruler, you can still, create this line, these two lines, create these two curves, excuse me. Next, I'm getting this point here and I'm just extending it over to our side seam here. Then from here down, I'm gonna go down 2 1/4, 2 1/4, or 2 1/4, whatever you want to call it. That line. And then from this line here, I'm going to go over 7 1/2. Or should I do 7? Let's do 7 1/4. See what that feels like. And this is our shoulder seam. Now to create our armhole, I'm just going to line up my French curve on this straight line and on this angle here. That's 11. And then for our waist, I am going to go in 1/2 inch from this line, from our 11 1/2, so it's going to be 11. So I'm just going to go over from our center line here. Mark 11. And then so now I'm creating my button placket, the placket that we're gonna put our buttonholes and our buttons on, which will be like this area here. So I'm just gonna go over 1 inch from our center line. And then from this line, we're going to create our facing, and that will be the fabric that we're going to turn over. That will then be, the facing on the inside. And so from this line here, I'm going to go over 2 inches. Okay, I'm going to try to explain this the best that I can. This is a little tip that I figured out, that when I'm trying to, do the facing and I'm trying to mimic this line here, and you want to make sure you try to get it as accurate as possible. What you want to do is from from this point here, so from our center line, go over an inch, because this is 2 inches and this is mimicking this. So you would go over an inch from this line and then go up to figure out how far up you need in order for this line and this line to be the same, if that makes any sense. So again, you go over from your center line an inch over, or however wide your facing is. Ours is 2 inches, so again, 2 inches, 2 inches. I went over an inch from our center line, and then I went up about, it's like about a quarter in another point, like what is that, 3/16 or something. But anyways, you go up however much that is from that point there, and then you can get that, and then you can create this create that curve that will mimic this line. And then from this, we're gonna go from this point here, I'm gonna go up like 3 inches, and this will be, again, this line here, and that should be enough to cover, so that when we put our collar in and everything, we won't have like that facing showing. And once we get to the sewing process, I'll probably show you exactly what I mean by that. But again, I'm gonna go from this point over 3 inches. Mark that 3. We've got a facing 2. And then from our line here, I'm gonna go down 6 inches, and we're just gonna connect that line at that point. Okay, I believe that's it. I believe that's, like I said, those are all the changes that I wanted to do. So next, the only thing to do with our body is to add the seam allowance and to add our bottom hem. I typically go like 3/8 and then 1/2 inch or 3/4, or however much you want to turn that over. And we're not going to add any seam allowance to this line here, because we're just going to overlock this. We're going to add interfacing and overlock that part, so no need to do that. And for our bottom hem, I'm just going to go down 1/2 inch from that 3/8 that we just did. Okay, and similar to what we did over here, mimicking these two things, we're going to do the same for the bottom. And this really only applies when you're creating like an angle. So when you're turning this up, you need to create that same angle coming down to mimic that angle up top. And so to do that, from our bottom line here, not the 3/8, not the 1/2 inch, but the original line that we created, we're going to go up, what is it, 3/4, right? 3/8 plus 3.5. Hold on, wait. Anyways, you're gonna go up 3/8 plus 1/2 inch, and then mark that line. So 3/8 and 1/2 inch. And then I like to do it on the other side as well. 3/8, 1/2 inch. And then we're just gonna figure out what that number is. And I mean, yeah, it's roughly the same, 11. So I mean, yeah, since I only went over 1/2 inch, it wasn't a really drastic angle. So yeah, it's still roughly like 11 inches, which yeah, that's fine. Um, but yeah, when the angle is like really drastic, that's when you really start to see the change. So if I had done, like 10 inches or something, then that angle, would be like this. And then so we would have to go out like this in order so that when we flipped it up, it would match up, if that makes sense. Again, I'm terrible at explaining, but better at just sort of showing with the sewing process. But yeah, I believe that is all that we have to do with the body. So now we have our new large sample. And we can move on to the sleeve and our collar. Okay, now to create our sleeve and our collar. So we are going to go over 11 inches. And it really is up to you how long you want your sleeve. I'm going to go 10.5 and see how that works. Now I'm going to go down, from this line I'm going to go down we can do 3 inches. Now using my French curve ruler again, I'm going to create that, the curve of the sleeve that you often see in patterns. So now we have the curve there, and then you're just going to determine again how wide you want that your sleeve hem to be. I'm going to do, let's go 8 3/4. See how that works for me. Then we're just going to create that line. And this will give us a better example of what I was talking about mimicking those angles. I'll show you in a second. But first we're going to add our seam allowance around that curve and then this line here. Okay, so we have our 3/8 and I added an inch, so we're going to be going up 1 inch and 3/8 and turning that over. So I'm going to go up 1 inch and 3/8 on our sleeve, mark that, 1 inch and 3/8, mark that, and then just figure out. Yeah, it's about 9 1/16, I believe that is. And so from this line here, mark that 9 1. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, again, the angle goes this way, because in the past I used to just go straight down and then my seams wouldn't match up when I went to turn this over and sew it, and I couldn't figure out why. So yeah, you have to pretty much just mimic the angle. Now we can do our collar. So yeah, all you need to do is take the number from the front and back neck. So again, ours was 4 3/4 and 3.5. So you can, add those two up and then mark it. We're gonna create like the entire half of the sleeve of the collar, if that makes sense. So essentially it's gonna look like this. So instead of the collar being like this and we cut on the fold here, we're going to just have it like this and then cut on that fold there. So yeah, I just went up 3.5 inches, and that will be, and we're just, go up 3.5 inches and mark that line. So we got 3.5 by 8 1/4. Now I'm just going to create like that collar point, and again it's very much designer choice. I'm going to go over 1 1/4. Okay, so I went over 1 1/4 inch, and then from this line here I went up 3/4, and then I connected those lines, and then from this point to this point is 4.5 inches, and I just marked that line just so I know. Okay, so what I've done is I've sort of extended this line a bit, and when you go to set and put in your collar, often, if not always, from my experience, I've found that the neck, like, it just gets longer when you cut it out. I don't know really what happens. Maybe that curve just sort of makes it longer, but you want to make your neck like a little bit longer as well. So like I said, our neck was 8 1/4 times 2. What is that? 16.5 inches. But I've made this 8.5 inches, and so that will be what is that? 17 inches, I believe. And so I'll show you in the sewing process what I mean. But yeah, oftentimes the neck sort of, like by like 1/2 inch or something, it gets a little longer. So yeah, you want to account for that. Then we just add our seam allowance. We can fold this over so we don't actually need to create that line work, and then we are done. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too painful. We only have 4 pieces: front, back, sleeve, collar. Like I said, pretty straightforward. We have our facing attached to it, so yeah, no need to cut out anything extra. And so yeah, now we are going to get into the sewing process. I'll make a different video for that, but if you stuck around to the end, thank you very much. I'm going to keep improving this so that I can really try to explain things the best way I can, and visually, make sure you can see the best that you can and everything. But yeah, thank you again. Peace.